She scribbled, "Help," on a napkin and slid it under a coffee mug, praying someone would notice before it was too late. The man across from her smiled like a husband, but his grip on her wrist told a different story. What she didn't know, the bikers at table 15 weren't just passing through, they were hunters, and they'd been looking for men like him. The fluorescent lights above the diner counter buzzed like dying wasps. Zoe Harper wiped down table 8 for the third time that hour, her reflection ghosting across the chrome napkin holder. Outside, the highway stretched into darkness, swallowing headlights whole. It was 10:32 p.m. on a Friday, the kind of night where time moved like cold honey. She'd been working at Sammy's Pit Stop Diner for 2 years now, ever since her journalism degree proved worthless and her student loans proved very real. The place smelled permanently of burnt coffee and diesel fuel wedged between a gas station and a long-haul trucker parking lot. Most nights were predictable. Tired drivers, instant coffee, small tips left in greasy change. Tonight felt different. Zoe couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the way the wind kept rattling the front door or how the radio kept cutting to static between songs. She glanced at the clock again. 10:36 p.m. The bell above the entrance chimed. 6 men walked in wearing leather jackets, boots that clunked against linoleum, and expressions that said they'd seen too much road. Bikers, they moved with the easy coordination of people who'd ridden together for years, claiming the large corner booth, table 15, without asking if it was available. Zoe grabbed 6 menus. She knew these guys, locals mostly. They called themselves something vaguely official sounding, did charity rides for missing kids, and tipped better than the truckers. The big one they called Bear had a gray beard down to his chest. The woman with the Raven tattoo on her neck went by Raven naturally, and the one who always sat facing the door, the one with the scar through his left eyebrow and eyes like he was still solving crimes in his head, that was Diesel. "Evening, Zoe," Diesel said, his voice gravel and whiskey. "Coffee all around. And whatever's not going to kill us on the menu tonight." "So, toast?" Zoe cracked. Bear laughed, a sound like a motorcycle engine turning over. "Make it 6 of the breakfast specials, extra bacon at midnight, time's a social construct," Raven said, not looking up from her phone. Zoe smiled despite herself and headed back to the kitchen, shouting the order through the window to Eddie, the night cook, who was probably smoking out back. She poured 6 coffees, black, and was heading back to table 15 when the bell chimed again. 10:43 p.m. A black SUV sat idling under the gas station lights outside, polished to a mirror shine. Expensive, out of place. 2 people walked in, a man and a woman. The man wore an expensive navy suit, no tie, top button undone, like he'd just come from a business dinner. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, confident walk. He held the door open for the woman with exaggerated politeness. The woman was younger, late 20s maybe, wearing a floral sundress completely wrong for the July chill outside. No jacket, her dark skin glowed under the diner lights, and even from across the room, Zoe could see her hands were shaking. Something cold settled in Zoe's stomach. The couple took table 3 near the window. The man sat facing the room, scanning at once, his gaze lingering on the bikers before settling. The woman sat with her back to everyone, shoulders hunched like she was trying to disappear into the vinyl booth. Zoe delivered the coffee to table 15 first, giving herself time to observe. When she approached table 3, she forced her customer service smile. "Evening, folks. What can I get you?" The man answered immediately. 2 burgers, medium rare, fries, 2 Cokes. He didn't look at the menu, didn't ask the woman what she wanted. Zoe glanced at her. "Miss, anything else for you?" The woman's eyes snapped up, red-rimmed, bloodshot. Her lips parted, but the man cut in smoothly. "She's fine with what I ordered. Long drive. She's exhausted. Isn't that right, honey? His hand covered hers on the table. Squeezed. The woman nodded once, jerky, then looked down. Every instinct Zoe had developed working late-night shifts in sketchy places started screaming. She'd seen tired couples, arguing couples, couples on the verge of divorce, fueling up before another silent 100 miles. This wasn't that. Sure thing, Zoe said lightly. Be right up. She walked to the kitchen, pulse hammering, called the order, stood at the coffee station, pretending to refill the pot while her mind raced. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the woman was sick or anxious or they'd had a fight. Maybe Zoe was just tired and paranoid from watching too many true crime documentaries during her breaks. But then she remembered the woman's dress. Wrong season. And her shoes, cheap canvas sneakers, dirty like she'd been walking while the man wore Italian leather loafers. Zoe grabbed the coffee pot and made another round starting with table 3. She refilled their water glasses. The man was scrolling his phone. Bored. The woman stared at the table like it held the secrets of the universe. As Zoe poured, she leaned in slightly. Restroom's in the back if you need it, she said casually. The woman's eyes flicked up, held Zoe's gaze for one desperate second. Then her lips moved. No sound. But Zoe read them clearly. Help me. The man's head snapped up. What was that? Just letting her know where the restroom is? Zoe said smoothly. Creamer. We're fine. His tone had an edge now. Zoe nodded and walked away. Her hands somehow steady, even though her heart was trying to break through her ribs. She went behind the counter, mind spinning. Call the police and say what? A woman looked scared. That wasn't illegal. By the time cops arrived, if they arrived, the couple would be gone. And if Zoe was wrong, she'd look insane. But if she was right, she glanced at table 15. The bikers were eating, talking low, laughing occasionally. Diesel was watching the room like he always did, that ex-cop awareness that never quite turned off. Zoe made a decision. She grabbed a napkin and a pen, hands shaking now. Printed 2 words, help, table 3. Folded it once. Tucked it under the rim of a coffee mug. Eddie rang the bell. Order up. Zoe grabbed the couple's food, delivered it with a smile that felt like broken glass in her throat. The man didn't look at her. The woman didn't touch her burger. Then Zoe picked up the coffee pot and headed to table 15. Warm-ups, she asked. Always, Bear said. She poured for each of them, hands moving on autopilot until she reached Diesel. Set the mug down carefully. The napkin underneath. Diesel's hand wrapped around the mug. Paused. His eyes dropped. Read. When he looked up at Zoe, his expression hadn't changed, but something in his gaze had gone cold and sharp. He picked up the mug, pulled out the napkin like he was checking something, and read it again. Then he folded it calmly, tucked it in his pocket, and took a sip of coffee. Thanks, Zoe, he said quietly. She walked back to the counter, legs weak, and started wiping down menus she'd already wiped. From the corner of her eye, she saw Diesel lean toward Bear, whisper something. Bear's expression hardened. He nodded once. At table 3, the man suddenly stood, tossed 2 20s on the table. We're leaving now. The woman stood mechanically. He grabbed her elbow, steering her toward the door. Diesel and Bear stood too. Then Raven. Then all 6 bikers moving with synchronized purpose toward the exit. The man noticed, froze. His hand tightened on the woman's arm. Problem? Diesel asked, his voice casual, blocking the door. No problem. Just leaving. The man's other hand slipped toward his jacket. And that's when everything erupted. The tension in the diner stretched like a wire about to snap. Diesel didn't move from the doorway. Behind him, Bear and Raven had spread out, casually blocking the exit without making it obvious. The other 3 bikers, Tank, Crow, and a younger guy called Specs, positioned themselves near the windows. It looked random. It wasn't. The man's jaw clenched. His hand hovered near his jacket. "We don't want any trouble." "Neither do we," Diesel said evenly. "Just making sure everyone gets where they need to go safely." The woman's eyes darted between Diesel and the door, her breath coming faster. Up close, Zoe could see bruising around her wrist, poorly covered with makeup. A small cut on her lower lip, healing. "My wife isn't feeling well," the man said, voice tight. "We need to get back on the road, wife." Diesel's eyebrow, the one with the scar through it, lifted slightly. "Funny, she's not wearing a ring." The man's face flushed. She took it off to wash her hands, right?" Diesel's tone said he didn't believe a word. He looked past the man directly at the woman. "Ma'am, you okay to travel?" The woman's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The man's hand clamped harder on her elbow. "She's fine. Aren't you, honey?" Zoe watched the woman's face crumble, fear and desperation warring behind her eyes. She was going to say she was fine. She was going to leave with him. And Zoe would never know what happened next. Before she could think, Zoe stepped forward. "Actually, sir, you didn't pay enough. The total was $42.50 with tax. It was a lie. The 20s more than covered it." But it made the man turn distracted. And in that half-second, the woman wrenched her arm free and stumbled backward, crashing into table 4. "He's not my husband," she screamed, voice breaking. "Please, he kidnapped me. Please, help me. Everything happened at once." The man lunged for her. Diesel moved faster, catching the man's arm mid-reach and twisting it behind his back. The man howled. Then his free hand dove into his jacket and came out with a small black pistol. "Gun!" Raven shouted. Bear hit the floor, pulling Zoe down with him. She felt the wind knocked out of her lungs as she landed hard behind the counter. Distantly, she heard the woman sobbing, heard boots scuffling, heard Diesel's voice, calm and commanding. "Drop it. Now back off or the threat ended in a wet crunch and a clatter." Zoe peeked over the counter to see the man on his knees, Diesel's boot on his back, the pistol skittering across the floor toward Specs, who picked it up carefully with a napkin. The woman had collapsed into a booth, shaking violently. Raven crouched beside her, speaking softly. "Eddie!" Zoe shouted toward the kitchen. "Call 911. "Already did." Eddie's voice came back high and panicked. When the gun came out, Diesel kept the man pinned, not even breathing hard. "You're going to stay right there until the cops arrive. Understand?" The man spat blood onto the linoleum. Said nothing. Bear helped Zoe to her feet. "You good?" "Yeah, I think so." Her hands were trembling badly now, adrenaline flooding her system in delayed waves. "Is she? Raven's got her. She's trained for this. Trained for what?" Bear exchanged a glance with Diesel, who nodded slightly. "We run an organization. Ride Safe. We track missing persons, especially women and kids who fall through the cracks. Work with law enforcement when they'll listen. Work around them when they won't." Zoe stared. "You're what? Like vigilantes? More like volunteer search and rescue with an attitude problem." Specs said, checking the pistol safety and better bikes. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. Zoe moved toward the woman. She looked so young now. Makeup streaked down her face, sundress wrinkled. Raven had wrapped a leather jacket around her shoulders. "What's your name?" Zoe asked gently. The woman looked up, eyes glassy with shock. "Claire. Claire Westfield." "Okay, Claire, you're safe now. Police are coming," he said. Claire's voice broke. "He said if I tried to run, if I told anyone, he'd kill my sister. He has her address, her work schedule, everything." "We'll make sure she's protected," Diesel said from across the room, still holding the man down. "What's her name and location?" Claire gave the information in a rush, stumbling over words. Tank was already on his phone making calls. 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled up outside, lights flashing red and blue across the diner windows. 4 deputies came in fast, hands on holsters, assessing the scene. The lead deputy, a woman with gray hair pulled back severely, took one look at Diesel and sighed. "Should have known you'd be involved, Garrett." "Sheriff Ramos," Diesel said mildly. "Always a pleasure." "Uh-huh." Ramos's gaze swept the room, landing on the man still pinned to the floor. "Someone want to tell me what happened?" Zoe stepped forward, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "That man brought this woman in against her will. She's a kidnapping victim. He pulled a gun when we tried to help her." Ramos's expression hardened. She nodded to her deputies who moved to handcuff the man. As they hauled him up, he finally spoke, voice cold. "You have no idea what you've done, no idea who you're messing with." "That a threat?" Ramos asked. The man smiled, blood on his teeth. "That's a promise." The man was hauled out in handcuffs, still smiling, that blood-stained smile that made Zoe's skin crawl. Through the window, she watched deputies shove him into the back of a patrol car. His eyes locked on the diner until the door slammed shut. Sheriff Ramos stayed behind, taking statements. Claire sat in the corner booth, wrapped in Raven's jacket, a styrofoam cup of hot chocolate clutched between her hands. She hadn't stopped shaking. "Start from the beginning," Ramos said, pen poised over her notepad. Claire's voice came out small, fractured. "I'm a journalist freelance. I was investigating disappearances along the I-95 corridor, women vanishing from rest stops, truck stops, small motels. I had a source who promised me evidence of a trafficking network operating across state lines." Zoe felt ice settle in her stomach. She'd heard those stories. Every woman who worked late nights had heard them. Whispered warnings about being careful about watching your back. "The source was supposed to meet me 3 days ago in Richmond," Claire continued. "But when I got to the location, he was there instead." She nodded toward the parking lot where the man had been taken. "Marcus Vane. He said my source was dead. Said I'd asked too many questions, poked around where I shouldn't have. He took you from Richmond," Ramos asked. "He drugged me. I woke up in the back of that SUV, hands zip-tied. He kept me in a motel room somewhere. I don't know where. Kept saying he was moving me to the facility tonight, that I'd disappear like the others." Claire's voice cracked. "He stopped here for gas. I thought it was my last chance." Diesel had been leaning against the counter, listening silently. Now he spoke. "Did Vane say anything about the network?" "Names, locations," Diesel Ramos warned. "This is an official investigation, which means it'll take weeks while they process jurisdictions and paperwork. You know how this works, Rita. By the time the feds get involved, everyone connected to Vane will be in the wind." Ramos's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. They had history, Zoe realized. Not all of it friendly. Claire looked at Diesel. He made phone calls, talked to someone called the broker, said they were behind schedule, that the shipment was supposed to move tonight. She closed her eyes, remembering he mentioned a place, Seabrook Warehouse, near the coast. Said that's where they'd process me before moving me overseas. "Seabrook," Specs muttered, fingers flying across his phone. "That's 4 hours east near Virginia Beach." Ramos held up a hand. "I'll contact the state police and FBI. If there's an active trafficking operation, they'll raid an empty building," Diesel said flatly. "These people have cops on payroll. Rita, you know it. I know it. The second official channels get involved. Evidence disappears and suddenly everyone's alibis check out. So what? You want to go cowboy on this? You're not a detective anymore, Garrett. You don't have jurisdiction, authority, or legal protection." "No," Diesel said quietly. "But I have time, and I have people who give a damn." The two stared at each other, years of complicated history passing between them in silence. Finally, Ramos sighed. I didn't hear any of that. Claire, I'm taking you to the station for protective custody. We'll get you medical attention and take a full statement. What about my sister? Claire asked urgently. Vane said he had people watching her. Already on it. Tank called from across the room, phone still pressed to his ear. Got a contact with Richmond PD. They're sending a unit to her apartment now. We'll keep eyes on her until this is resolved. Claire sagged with relief, tears spilling over. Thank you. God, thank you. As Ramos helped Claire toward the door, the young woman stopped beside Zoe. You saved my life. I don't even know your name. Zoe. Zoe Harper. Zoe. Claire gripped her hand, squeezed hard. Thank you for seeing me, for not looking away. Then she was gone, guided into the sheriff's car, and the diner felt impossibly empty. Eddie emerged from the kitchen, face pale. We closed for the rest of the night, right? Because I'm going to need about 17 drinks and therapy. Go home, Eddie, Zoe said. She felt numb, detached, like she was watching herself from outside her body. The bikers were gathering near table 15, speaking in low tones. Zoe caught fragments. Need to confirm the location. Call Jackson. See if his contact at the port move fast before they relocate. She walked over. You're going after them. The trafficking network. Diesel met her eyes. We are, even though it's dangerous. Even though you could get killed. Someone has to. His voice was matter-of-fact. Official channels are compromised or too slow. These people take women and kids and make them disappear. We don't let that stand. Zoe thought about Claire's face. The desperation. The fear. How close she'd come to vanishing forever. How many have you saved? She asked. 47 confirmed recoveries in 3 years, Raven said. Probably more we don't know about. Sometimes people escape during raids, go home on their own. And how many times have you almost died? Diesel's scarred eyebrow lifted. You want an exact number or a ballpark despite everything? Zoe almost smiled. Almost? Just be careful. Always Our Bear clapped her shoulder gently. You did good tonight, kid. Real good. They filed out into the parking lot, engines roaring to life one by one. Zoe watched through the window as 6 motorcycles pulled onto the highway and disappeared into the night, tail lights fading like dying stars. The diner was silent except for the buzzing fluorescent lights. Zoe locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and tried very hard not to think about what might happen next. She failed. 2 days passed like fever dreams. Zoe couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Claire's face, heard Marcus Vane's voice. You have no idea who you're messing with. She kept her phone close, checking news sites obsessively, searching for updates that never came. The diner reopened the next morning. News crews showed up by noon, local stations at first, then a CNN affiliate. They wanted to interview the brave waitress who stopped a kidnapping. Zoe refused. Sammy, the owner, was less pleased about the publicity than she'd expected. Trouble's bad for business, he muttered, though the curiosity seekers filling every booth said otherwise. By Saturday afternoon, the media had mostly moved on. A 3-paragraph story ran in the local paper. Woman rescued from kidnapper at local diner. Suspect Marcus Vane in custody. Investigation ongoing. Ongoing. The word felt hollow. Zoe was wiping down table 3. She'd avoided it since that night, but couldn't anymore when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello, Zoe Harper. A woman's voice slightly distorted like she was calling from a bad connection. Who is this? It's Claire. Claire Westfield. The woman you know who you are. Zoe's heart kicked up. Are you okay? Where are you? Protective custody. They won't tell me where, Security reasons. Claire's voice dropped. I needed to call you, to warn you. The diner suddenly felt too cold. Warn me about what? Marcus Vane. He escaped. The words didn't make sense. Zoe heard them, understood them individually, but together they felt impossible. What do you mean, escaped? He was in custody. They arrested him. During transport to the federal facility yesterday morning, Claire spoke quickly, urgently. The transport van was ambushed on Highway 64. 2 guards dead. Vane gone. FBI thinks it was coordinated. Someone on the inside helped plan it. Zoe sat down hard in the nearest booth. Why are you telling me this? Because before he escaped, he told his lawyer he was going to tie up loose ends. The lawyer reported it. But Zoe, you're a loose end. You saw him. You helped me. You can identify him. He knows your name. Knows where you work. The police are stretched thin. They offered me protection because I'm a federal witness now. But you, Claire's voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to put you in danger. I had to warn you. After they hung up, Zoe sat in the empty diner, staring at nothing. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the parking lot in shades of rust and blood. She thought about calling Sheriff Ramos. Thought about calling Diesel, except she didn't have his number. Thought about running, except where would she go? Her life was here, small and threadbare, but hers. You're being paranoid, she told herself. Vane's probably halfway to Mexico by now. Why would he risk coming back? But she remembered his smile, the cold certainty in his eyes. Men like that didn't leave loose ends. That night, Zoe drove home to her trailer park on the outskirts of town, checking her rear-view mirror every 30 seconds. The trailer was small, cramped, but it was paid for, inherited from her grandmother. She locked the door, checked the windows, pulled the curtains, tried to convince herself she was safe. At 10:32 p.m., the same time Vane had walked into the diner, Zoe heard an engine outside. Deep, powerful. Not the usual sounds of the trailer park. She moved to the window, peeked through the curtains. A black SUV sat 3 spaces down, engine idling. No lights, just sitting there. Zoe's blood turned to ice water. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands, dialed 911. This is Zoe Harper at Sunny Acres Mobile Home Park, Space 17. There's a suspicious vehicle outside my home. I believe I'm in danger. The dispatcher's voice was professionally calm, taking details, promising to send a unit. Can you describe the vehicle? Black SUV. Looks like the same one from 2 nights ago. The kidnapping case, I think. Headlights suddenly blazed to life, and the SUV peeled out, tires screaming. By the time Zoe got outside, it was gone, tail lights disappearing around the corner. Sheriff's deputies arrived 15 minutes later, searched the area, found nothing. Could have been someone turning around, the younger deputy suggested. These trailer parks can be confusing at night. At midnight, just sitting there. Zoe's voice was sharp with fear and frustration. The older deputy looked more sympathetic. We'll increase patrols in this area. Keep your doors locked. Stay aware of your surroundings. You have somewhere else you can stay for a few days. She didn't. Couldn't afford a motel, and her only friend in town worked double shifts at the hospital. After the deputies left, Zoe sat in her trailer, lights on, kitchen knife on the coffee table, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. At 2:14 a.m., for her phone buzzed, another unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then, thinking it might be Claire again, she picked up. Silence. Just breathing. Hello? Zoe's voice shook, a man's voice, smooth and cold. You should have minded your own business. The line went dead. Zoe didn't sleep that night. At dawn, when she finally worked up the courage to step outside, she found something tucked under her windshield wiper. A napkin. With one word written in red ink, soon Zoe called Sheriff Ramos at 6:47 a.m. the napkin sealed in a plastic sandwich bag like she'd seen them do on crime shows. He was here at my home. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Too high, too thin. He left this. Ramos arrived within 20 minutes. 2 deputies trailing behind. She examined the napkin through the plastic, jaw tight. We'll dust for prints. But if he's smart, he wore gloves. I'm sure he wore gloves. Zoe wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly freezing despite the morning sun. What do? I can't just sit here waiting for him to come back. We can offer periodic drive-bys, but we don't have the budget for round-the-clock protection. Ramos looked genuinely apologetic. Not for a potential threat. If he actually attempts something, then it's too late. Zoe laughed, a brittle sound. That's what you're saying. I'm saying our resources are limited. I'm sorry. After Ramos left, Zoe sat in her trailer, staring at walls that suddenly felt paper thin. She couldn't go to work. What if Vane showed up there? Couldn't stay here, couldn't run without money, couldn't call anyone because who would believe this nightmare? Her phone rang. She jumped so hard she nearly dropped it. Local number this time, she answered cautiously. Hello, Zoe. It's Diesel. Diesel Garrett. Relief flooded through her so intensely she felt dizzy. How did you get my number? Called the diner. Sammy gave it to me. A pause. You okay? You sound rattled. Vane escaped custody. He was at my trailer last night. Left me a threatening note. The sheriff can't help. And her voice broke. I don't know what to do. Silence on the other end. Then give me your address. I'll be there in 40 minutes. You don't have to. Zoe, address now? She gave it. 37 minutes later, a motorcycle pulled up. Not Diesel's usual ride, but a sleeker model built for speed. He dismounted, pulling off his helmet, and even exhausted and terrified, Zoe noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. You look terrible, she said. Back at you, he managed a small smile. Can I come in? Inside the cramped trailer, Diesel examined the napkin through its plastic bag, his expression darkening. This is escalation. He's not just running, he's cleaning house. Claire said I was a loose end. You are. So am I. So is everyone who can connect him to the trafficking network. Diesel set down the napkin. We tracked his associates to the Seabrook warehouse 2 nights ago. Place was cleaned out. No evidence, no people. But we found documents enough to know the operation's bigger than we thought. Multi-state international connections. Did you find Claire? His expression shifted, something dark crossing his face. That's why I'm here. Claire's gone. The words hit like a physical blow. Gone? What do you mean gone? She was in protective custody. Safe house in Raleigh last night. Someone breached security. 2 marshals injured. Claire vanished. No signs of struggle in her room. She either left willingly or was taken by someone she trusted. Zoe's mind raced. You think she was part of it? Working with them? No. I think they have leverage on her. Remember her sister? Diesel pulled out his phone, showed her a photo of a young woman, early 20s, dark hair. Sarah Westfield disappeared from her Richmond apartment yesterday afternoon. Surveillance shows 2 men forcing her into a van. Oh, God. Claire probably received proof they have Sarah. Proof that if she doesn't cooperate, Sarah dies. So she went with them willingly to buy her sister time. Diesel's voice was steady, but anger simmered beneath, which means they're consolidating, tying up loose ends before disappearing for good. And I'm a loose end. Yes, the blunt honesty was somehow worse than false comfort would have been. Zoe stood, paced the tiny living room. So, what do I do? Hide? Run? Wait for him to find me, or you help us find him first? She stopped. What? Vane was careful, but not perfect. You served them that night. You saw his face, his mannerisms, heard his voice. We have surveillance footage from the diner's parking lot. Partial plate on the SUV. Timestamps. You might remember details you don't realize are important. You want me to help hunt down a murderous trafficker? I want you to help save Claire and her sister before they disappear forever. And keep yourself alive in the process. Diesel met her eyes. Look, I get it. This isn't your fight. You served coffee and made a moral choice to help someone. You don't owe anyone anything more. I can arrange for you to stay with friends in Tennessee off the grid until this blows over. And if it doesn't blow over, if he keeps looking, then you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Zoe thought about Claire's face in the diner. The desperate hope when Zoe had slipped that napkin under the coffee mug. How close she'd come to freedom only to be dragged back into hell. She thought about the napkin on her windshield. Soon. What do you need from me? She asked. Diesel pulled out a tablet, opened files. Everything you remember about that night. Every detail, no matter how small. Then we follow the trail wherever it leads. Where does it lead? The coast. Seabrook. A dead end, but we found shipping manifests, coastal warehouse networks. Someone's moving people by boat. He looked at her steadily. This might get dangerous. It's already dangerous, Zoe said. At least this way I'm doing something about it. Then pack a bag. We leave in 10 minutes. The highway unreeled beneath them like a ribbon of asphalt leading nowhere good. Zoe rode behind Diesel, arms wrapped around his leather jacket, thighs gripping the motorcycle seat as wind screamed past. She'd never been on a bike before. Under different circumstances, she might have been terrified. Now fear had become so constant, it felt like background noise. They rode for 2 hours before stopping at a rundown motel outside Petersburg. Bear and Raven were already there, their bikes parked outside room 12. Inside the room smelled like cigarettes and decades of poor decisions, but the beds were clean, and the door had a deadbolt. Cut you up to speed? Bear asked Diesel. Most of it. Diesel spread a map across the stained table marked with red circles and handwritten notes. Zoe, come look at this. She joined them, exhaustion making everything feel surreal. The map showed the coastline from Maryland down to South Carolina, but concentrated on Virginia. Seabrook Warehouse had a red X through it. Several other locations were circled. After Seabrook came up empty, we started tracking financial records, Raven explained, her finger tracing routes. Shell companies, dummy corporations, classic money laundering setup, but they all connect back to coastal properties, warehouses, shipping facilities, even a defunct seafood processing plant. They're moving people by boat, Zoe said, remembering what Diesel had told her. Right. Small vessels, hard to track, heading to cargo ships in international waters. From there, Raven shrugged. Wherever the buyers are. The casual horror of it made Zoe's stomach turn. We've been hitting locations for the past 30 hours, Bear said, exhaustion evident in his voice. Found 2 more empty warehouses, 1 active drug operation. Called that in anonymously. And a lot of scared people who suddenly don't remember anything. Fear a payroll, Diesel muttered. Vane's organization has deep roots. So what's next? Zoe asked. Diesel tapped a location south of Norfolk. This Harborview seafood processing closed down 8 years ago, supposedly condemned, but satellite imagery shows fresh tire tracks, recent activity, and he pulled out his phone, showed her a grainy photo. We got this from a traffic camera 2 hours ago. The black SUV, same model, same partial plate visible. He's there. Zoe breathed. Or someone connected to him could be a trap. Everything could be a trap at this point, Raven said. Doesn't mean we don't go. They left at dusk, taking rural highways and back roads. Diesel had Zoe ride in Bear's truck this time. Less conspicuous, he explained, which made sense, but left her feeling disconnected from the action. A passenger in her own revenge plot. Except it wasn't revenge. It was rescue. They stopped at a gas station 40 minutes out. While Bear filled the tank, Zoe went inside for coffee, barely tasting it. The teenage cashier was absorbed in his phone. Didn't even look up. The normalcy felt obscene outside. Raven was studying her phone, frowning. Just got a ping. Someone's using Claire's credit card where Diesel was beside her instantly. Here, this gas station 15 minutes ago. They all turned to look at the cashier. He finally glanced up, noticed 4 leather-clad bikers staring at him, and went pale. "Easy," Diesel said, approaching slowly, hands visible. "We need to see your security footage from about 20 minutes ago." "I can't just—" Bear leaned on the counter. He didn't say anything, didn't threaten, just leaned. The kid swallowed hard and pulled up the footage. They watched the timestamp roll back. 6:23 p.m. A figure in a hoodie walked in, grabbed water and granola bars, paid with a card, kept their face down away from the camera. "Can you zoom in?" Zoe asked. The resolution was terrible, but when the figure turned slightly, dark curls escaped the hoodie and on their left hand, visible for just a moment, bruising around the wrist. "That's Claire," Zoe said with certainty. "She's alive," Raven breathed. "Alone using her own card, which means she escaped or they let her go." Diesel's eyes narrowed. "Or it's bait." "She went that way." The cashier pointed south toward the coast. "Walked, didn't have a car. They found her 3 miles down the road, sitting on a guardrail, staring at the ocean. She didn't run when the truck pulled up. Just looked at them with hollow eyes. Claire." Zoe got out slowly, hands visible. "It's me from the diner." Claire blinked, recognition dawning slowly. "Zoe, you shouldn't be here. Neither should you. What happened?" "They have Sarah." Claire's voice was mechanical, emptied of emotion. "Showed me video. She's alive, but they're hurting her. Said if I help them finish this, they'll let her go." "Help them how?" Diesel asked, keeping his distance. "Lead you to them." Claire looked at him directly. "You're Diesel Garrett. Ex-detective runs Ride Safe. They know all about you. They want you to stop looking. Stop investigating. So they made me a deal. Bring you to them. They kill you. My sister lives." Silence, except for waves crashing somewhere below the cliff. "I'm sorry," Claire whispered. "I left the trail on purpose. The credit card, walking where you'd find me. I'm so sorry, but I can't let Sarah die." Bear's hand moved to his belt. Raven tensed, but Diesel just nodded slowly. "Where are they holding her?" "The processing plant, Harborview. They're waiting for you." There's at least 10 men, all armed. Vane's there." Claire's voice cracked. "Please just walk away. Let them disappear. Sarah's only 23. She has her whole life." "So do the next women they take," Diesel said quietly. "And the next, and the next." Claire started crying, silent tears streaming down her face. Diesel looked at his team. "We go in smart. We get Sarah. We end this." "It's a death trap," Bear said. "Probably." Diesel's scarred eyebrow lifted. "Anyone want to sit this one out?" Nobody moved. The Harborview seafood processing plant crouched against the coastline like a rotting corpse, all rusted metal and shattered windows. The smell hit them first. Brine and decay, old fish guts baked into concrete by years of sun. They parked a quarter-mile out, approaching on foot through the scrub brush. It was 9:47 p.m., and fog had rolled in from the ocean, thick and cold. Diesel had called in backup. 3 more Ride Safe members from the Norfolk chapter met them at the rendezvous point. 9 against 10, maybe worse odds. Claire stayed with the vehicles, face buried in her hands. "Zoe," Diesel said quietly, "you don't have to come inside. This is the part where civilians stay back. I didn't come this far to sit in a truck." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "Besides, I know what Vane looks like. What if you need identification?" It was a thin excuse. They both knew it, but Diesel nodded and handed her a tactical flashlight. "Stay behind me. If shooting starts, you hit the ground." "Understood." Understood. They moved in two groups, Bear's team circling to the rear entrance, Diesel's taking the front. The main door hung open, creaking in the wind. Inside, darkness swallowed everything beyond the flashlight beams. The processing floor was vast. Conveyor belts frozen mid-operation, hooks hanging from the ceiling like gallows, standing water reflecting their lights. The fog seemed to have followed them inside. Or maybe it was just the coastal air mixing with interior rot. Zoe's heart hammered against her ribs. Every shadow looked like a person. Every sound could be a threat. "Clear left," Raven whispered. Moving with practiced precision, they advanced through the facility room by room. Empty offices with moldering paperwork. A break room with a table set for a meal that never happened. Everything abandoned, frozen in time. Then they heard it. A muffled scream from below. "Basement," Diesel said, finding the stairs. The descent felt like entering a tomb. The temperature dropped. The smell intensified. But under the rot was something else. Perfume, sweat, fear. The basement had been converted. Makeshift cells lined one wall, chain link and padlocks. Most were empty, but in the last one, a young woman huddled in the corner, face swollen from crying. "Sarah," Zoe breathed. Diesel was already at the lock, pulling tools from his jacket. "Sarah Westfield. Your sister sent us. You're safe now. It's a trap," Sarah screamed. "They knew you'd come there." Lights blazed on, blinding after the darkness. Zoe threw up her hand, squinting against the glare. When her vision cleared, Marcus Vane stood on the catwalk above, flanked by armed men, 6 of them, rifles pointed down. In the shadows behind them, more movement. "Diesel Garrett," Vane said, his voice echoing off concrete. "So predictable. Show you a damsel in distress and you come running every time." "Let the women go," Diesel said calmly. "This is between us, is it? See, I don't think you understand the scope of what you're interfering with." Vane began descending the metal stairs, boots clanging. "This operation moves 200 people a year, 200 lives redirected, repurposed, and it's just one node in a network that spans continents. You're not fighting criminals, detective. You're fighting an industry, slavery. Call it what it is." Vane smiled. "Economics, supply and demand. I'm just a middleman." While they talked, Zoe noticed Raven moving slowly along the wall, staying in the shadows. Bear's voice crackled once in someone's earpiece. They were in position. Zoe's hand tightened on the flashlight. It was heavy metal, could maybe be used as a weapon if her gaze drifted to Sarah's cell, the lock Diesel had been working on. It was open now, hanging loose. Sarah saw her looking. Their eyes met. Zoe made a decision. She moved fast, diving for the cell door, yanking it open. "Run!" Everything exploded into chaos. Sarah bolted from the cell. Vane shouted orders. Gunfire erupted, but not from Vane's men. Bear's team had breached from above, and suddenly the armed men were taking fire from 2 directions. Diesel tackled Zoe behind a concrete pillar as bullets sparked off metal. What part of "stay behind me" was unclear. The part where a girl needed saving. Raven had reached the stairs, engaging 2 of Vane's men hand to hand. She moved like violence set to music, disarming one and using his weapon against the other. Bear's voice boomed from above. "Federal agents inbound. We called it in." It was a bluff, probably, but 2 of Vane's men broke and ran for the rear exit. Vane himself had lost track of Sarah in the chaos. Zoe saw the young woman running for the stairs, saw Vane turning, raising his pistol. Without thinking, Zoe hurled the flashlight. It caught Vane in the temple, not hard enough to drop him, but enough to ruin his aim. The shot went wide. Diesel was on him a second later. They went down hard, struggling for the gun. It skittered away across the concrete. Both men scrambled to their feet, circling each other. "You ruined everything," Vane snarled, pulling a knife. "Good," Diesel said, and charged. They fought like men who knew exactly how to kill. Diesel had training, but Vane had desperation. The knife flashed, opening a line across Diesel's forearm. He didn't even flinch, just caught Vane's wrist and twisted until something cracked. Vane screamed. The knife fell above them. Sirens approached, real ones this time. Diesel slammed Vane against the concrete pillar, forearm across his throat. "It's over the network," Vane choked out. "You can't stop it. You'll never stop it. Watch me." Police flooded in, state and federal both surrounding the building. In the chaos of arrests and evidence collection, Zoe found Sarah wrapped in someone's jacket, shaking but alive. Claire appeared from somewhere, and the sisters collapsed into each other, sobbing. Outside, dawn was breaking over the ocean, painting everything gold. 3 weeks later, Zoe stood behind the counter of Sammy's Pit Stop diner, pouring coffee for a trucker who didn't look up from his phone. Some things never changed, but other things had changed completely. The diner had new ownership. Sammy sold it to a community co-op that included several ride-safe members. The walls now displayed missing persons posters alongside the usual pie specials, and a donation jar sat by the register support ride safe, bringing them home. Table 15 had a small brass plaque bolted to it, reserved for heroes. The bikers came through regularly, now using the diner as an unofficial headquarters for their eastern operations. Tonight, 4 of them occupied their usual booth, though Diesel wasn't among them. He'd been called to testify at the federal trial in Richmond, the trial that was dismantling Vane's entire network. Zoe had testified too 2 weeks ago, sat in a federal courtroom, and identified Marcus Vane, described that night in detail while he stared at her with empty eyes. The prosecutor said her testimony was crucial. The napkin, the rescue, the timeline, all of it helped establish the pattern of operation. Vane was facing life without parole. 18 of his associates had already taken plea deals, giving up names, locations, bank accounts. The FBI had rescued 43 people from various facilities across 7 states. 43 lives. The bell above the door chimed. Zoe looked up and her breath caught. Claire Westfield walked in looking nothing like the terrified woman from that night. Her hair was shorter, styled confidently. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, a gift from Raven, Zoe happened to know, and her eyes, once hollow with fear, now burned with purpose. "Hey," Claire said, sliding onto a counter stool. "Hey yourself." Zoe poured coffee without asking. "How's Sarah? Back in school therapy twice a week. She's..." Claire paused, searching for words. "She's going to be okay. We both are." Claire's exposé had published 3 days after the warehouse raid. The highway network, How Trafficking Rings Hide in Plain Sight, ran in 6 major newspapers and won her a job offer from the Washington Post. She'd turned it down to go independent, focusing exclusively on trafficking investigations. "I brought you something," Claire said, sliding a magazine across the counter. Rolling Stone. The cover featured a group photo of Ride Safe members, motorcycles gleaming, under the headline, "Angels on Wheels, the Biker Gang Saving Lives." Zoe flipped it open. The article was 12 pages, meticulously reported. Diesel's face appeared multiple times, looking uncomfortable with the attention. There were statistics, survivor testimonies, expert analysis, and on page 7, a paragraph that made Zoe's throat tight. The rescue began with a waitress named Zoe Harper, who noticed what others missed and acted when others would have looked away. "In the fight against trafficking, awareness is the first line of defense, and sometimes a napkin is enough to save a life." "You used my name," Zoe said quietly. "You earned it. Besides, Claire smiled, I figured you wouldn't mind. The bell chimed again. This time Diesel walked in, his arms still bandaged but healing well. Behind him, Bear, Raven, and 3 others Zoe recognized from the warehouse. Heard there was decent coffee here, Diesel said straight-faced. Heard wrong, Zoe shot back, but I'll pour it anyway. They settled at table 15, the group expanding to fill the space. Zoe brought over a pot and enough mugs for everyone, sliding into the booth beside Claire when they insisted. So, Bear said, pulling out an envelope. We took a vote. About what? Zoe asked. Diesel pushed the envelope toward her. Ride Safe is expanding. We're opening regional chapters, training volunteers, building a database. The Rolling Stone piece brought in enough donations to fund operations for 2 years. That's amazing. We want you involved, Raven said. Official capacity. Training new spotters, wait staff, gas station attendants, hotel clerks, people who see things, who notice when something's wrong. Zoe opened the envelope. Inside was a patch, the same silver one Diesel had promised, embroidered with Table 15 and Honor Under Fire below it, a letter offering her a position as Community Outreach Coordinator. I don't know anything about outreach. She managed, about paying attention. Diesel said about trusting your instincts, about doing the right thing when it's dangerous. He met her eyes. That's harder to teach than logistics. Zoe looked around the table at Claire, who'd survived hell and turned it into purpose. At Diesel, who'd walked away from one broken system to build something better. At all of them who'd chosen to fight because someone had to. When do I start? She asked. Bear grinned. That's what I like to hear. They talked for hours, planning expansions and training programs, sharing stories from the road. The diner stayed open late, other customers coming and going, while Table 15 remained full of people who'd looked into the darkness and refused to blink. Eventually, Claire had to leave for a flight to D.C. Another interview. Another piece of the network to expose. She hugged Zoe tight at the door. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help, Zoe replied. After everyone left, Zoe locked up alone. She took the silver patch from the envelope and pinned it to the wall behind the register, right next to the donation jar and missing persons posters. Table 15. Honor Under Fire. Outside, the highway stretched into darkness, carrying people toward unknown destinations. Some running toward something, some running from something, and some, like Zoe now knew, just trying to survive until someone noticed. She'd keep noticing, one napkin at a time.